The UFC just announced some major updates to UFC 303 International Fight Week. I'm going to go through them all, and then in the end, I'm going to talk some more about the welterweight title picture in general, because I think the welterweight division is slowly becoming more and more stacked. But that's for the end. For now, let's focus on this matchup, Jamahal Hill versus Carlos Ulberg. Khalil Rountree pulled out. He was not caught taken. He turned himself in. It was some mix-up with the supplements, right? I don't really feel like going in detail about that story because it's kind of old news at this point, right? He popped a while ago. I don't want to say popped, right? Because it doesn't sound right. He turned himself in because he realized the supplements were, tainted or something. I don't even know, right? Khalil's out. That's what we need to know. And now Jamahal Hill has a new opponent in Carlos Ulberg. I don't think this is any better for him. I think this is actually worse for him. I think Ulberg might be more of a powerhouse than Khalil Rountree. Right? Ulberg has multiple first-round KOs. And you're going against a guy who just got KO'd in the first round like 2.5 months ago. At the time of the fight, it will be 2.5 months. I don't think that's smart at all, and I don't think Jamahal Hill should have taken this fight, to be honest with you. I know he wanted to stay active. He doesn't want to, just sit out and recover and then just to come back and potentially lose, right? Like we saw Dominic Reyes do that, right? He sat out for a while. He recovered for a while. Came back and got flatlined by Ryan Spann in like one round, right? So I can understand that he doesn't want to sit out, for that long. But coming back in 2.5 months is way too much. That's way too quick of a turnaround. I know you want to stay active, but you just got knocked out. And now you're going against a guy with multiple first-round KOs, right? And I don't think Hill's fully recovered. I don't think he's fully recovered. Again, he's making a quick turnaround. There's no way he can be fully recovered if he's making this quick of a turnaround. And he might have a similar downfall to Volkanovski, right? Like we saw it with Volk. He got knocked out in the first round by Islam. Came back and said, no, I want to go against Topuria. I don't want to sit out. And then boom, got flatlined by Topuria. And now he's sitting out for a while, which is good. But will he ever come back from that? I don't know. I think both ways, I think Ilya would have beat him, regardless if he took time off or not. So maybe him taking time off would have only prolonged his impending doom. But I still think that taking more time off, or taking at least a bit of time off, is always better, right? When you get knocked out like that. Jamahal Hill was flatlined. That wasn't just like a TKO. It wasn't a submission. You got flatlined, bro. You got flatlined. You need to take some time off. So I'm picking Ulberg not only because he's a powerhouse, but also because, like I mentioned about Jamahal Hill, is he strikes with his hands down a lot. And I know Carlos Ulberg actually does kind of the same thing a little bit, right? Like sometimes he'll just be throwing strikes and his hands are not like up high or anything. But that's like when he's like moving back, or that's like when he's like putting people away. Like he's throwing a bomb of a shot that puts you away, and his hands are down. Like everyone does that. When you're teeing off on somebody who is like not there anymore and you can tell he's basically out, you're not having your hands up like this, like they're down, and you're just swinging and trying to take him out, right? With Jamahal Hill, first of all, I don't think he has that much power, right? I think Jamahal Hill's power is kind of overrated. Like, sure, bro, you slumped Johnny Walker, but you didn't put Glover Teixeira away. You beat on him all night, but you didn't put him away, right? Jamahal Hill survived the storm of strikes you were throwing at him. An old man, Jamahal Hill. You didn't put him away, bro. Did he even knock him down? I don't remember. Okay, all right. Maybe he did knock him down, but he didn't put him away. That's what matters, right? You didn't finish him. You just landed a lot of shots, and there were some rounds where Glover Teixeira would like clip him with something because his hands are always down. So he's throwing these strikes, dropping his hands, and like against Pereira, and I might edit some clips in. Against Pereira, he threw like a left hand and like dropped his right. Like he had like no protection, no hands up. He threw a left hand like this, dropped his right hand down here. It was not up here. Dropped his right hand, and that's when the left hook came in on the other side and slumped Jamahal Hill. Put him out cold because he drops his hands. Like that strike that he threw, it didn't look like a bomb of a strike. It didn't look like he was trying to put Alex away with that strike. It looked like kind of a lazy cross, to be honest with you, right? It looked like a bit of a lazy cross, and he got clipped while throwing that punch because Pereira just slipped it, and then boom, landed a left hook, and Jamahal Hill's eyes rolled back, and he was done, right? He drops his hands a lot, and if he does that against Ulberg, if he throws some lazy punch like that, and he drops his hands, He will get flatlined in the first round, which is why I'm going to take a first round knockout. I don't think Hill's fully recovered, right? Right? Like, I know Ulberg, like, he's knocked out some, like, maybe nobodies, right? Like, mainly a lot of just, like, who's this guy? And light heavyweight has a lot of those guys, like, oh, who did he knock out again? Like, oh, okay, that guy, like, all right, nobody cares. Move on, right? Like, one of the guys he beat was, like, Ihor Potieria, right? We just saw him fight Michel Pereira at middleweight. This guy moved down, or, like, what happened, right? Like, who are these bums? Who are these cans, right? But because Hill's brain is not fully recovered, I'm taking first round because Carlos Ulberg still looks like he has some power on him. I know he's knocking out some cans, but that doesn't mean his hands are, made of feathers or whatever, right? Like, he's still knocking him out in the first round very quickly, right? And also, Jamahal Hill's brain is not fully recovered, so it evens it up a little bit and it lines it up perfectly for a first round knockout, if you understand what I mean, right? But that's enough about that. Let's move on to Ian Garry versus Michael Venom Page. I'm not going to say Ian Machado Garry. Your name is way too long, right, bro? Machado Garry. Get that shit out of here, bro. Look at this long poster, Machado Garry, bro. Just put Garry on there. What a weirdo. This is a banger of a fight, and Colby Covington is a coward. So let's go step by step. Colby Covington is a coward for ducking Ian Garry because he ducked Ian Garry. Ian Garry said, listen, the fight is, I've agreed to it. Colby just hasn't agreed to it, and Colby's like, oh, but what about my stipulations? Bro, Ian Garry is not going to do that, bro. I don't like Ian Garry. I'm not, like, siding with Ian Garry against Colby Covington, right? But Ian Garry's not doing that, bro. He's not going to, like, agree to say, oh, yeah, if you beat me, yeah, take my wife and put her in one of your, like, bet whatever videos, like, pick of the week or whatever videos, when he has those girls. He doesn't have them, actually, anymore. He doesn't have them after his downfall with Leon Edwards. But, I think maybe he can't afford them. Maybe UFC cut his pay after that shitty performance. But, he's asking Ian Garry, that was like his third stipulation or something. He said, oh, give me your wife to make a video with. Bro, of course he's going to say no. Of course he's not going to agree to that, right? And I saw Colby talking about it on some like podcast or whatever. He was like, one of the stipulations was open your comment section. How easy is that? How are you denying that? Bro, that was one of the stipulations. Yeah, bro. But what was the other one, bro? Have your wife beg on camera and ask me to fight you. And then agree to let your wife come and make a pick of the week video with me if you lose. Bro, you left out the two, crucial stipulations that he would just never agree with. Like, why would he humiliate himself and agree with that, right? Like, taking that fight and beating you is supposed to increase his stock and put him in title contention. But you're asking him to do something so humiliating that I would just it's already kind of humiliated right now, right? So there's not really much worse that can happen. But that would just add fuel to the fire that is Ian Garry's reputation, and his career would be over. He would be humiliated, and he would never be a star. His stock would plummet. You understand what I mean? Like, Ian Garry was never going to do that. But Colby put those stipulations up, and then when Ian Garry doesn't do them, he's like, oh, he's ducking me. But Colby is the one who's ducking. He robbed us of a beautiful press conference with him and Garry, because I think that fight might have been a bit boring, judging off of Colby's last performance. But the press conference would have been amazing. But the unfortunate thing is I think Ian Garry might have beat Colby Covington. Okay? He might have beat Colby Covington. He could have a chance just to stay at range and just jab away like he did with Jeff Neal. But if Colby really pushed hard on the wrestling, then it's possible, right? Colby would be able to beat him. And if Colby beat Ian Garry, that would be amazing. And that'd be a great way to put his stock right back up after a shitty performance against Leon Edwards, smoking Ian Garry, who everybody hates. Beautiful way to get loved by the fans again. But Ian Garry, if he won that, it would have been very annoying. It's like, oh shit, he just beat the guy, who was hating on him, and now this guy's winning again, and he's going to be on the mic talking about, you haters, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. Like, bro, shut up. That's not his accent. It's not a good accent. But anyways, now, although we've been robbed of a press conference that would have been just fire with Colby Covington, Ian Garry, Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler, this is a much better fight. I think this is a much better fight. And also because I think MVP is more likely to beat Ian Garry. If I was to pick one of them to beat Ian Garry, it would be MVP. MVP is very, very, very good. I think he's very, very good. And I think he's going to end the non-existent hype train that is Ian Garry. Or at least end the win streak, right? That makes more sense. Because Ian Garry has no hype train. Nobody likes Ian Garry, right? His last performance was shit. Let's be real here, bro. Ian Garry had a terrible performance last time around. He did not want to mess with Jeff Neal's power, so he just stayed at range and just jabbed away. He didn't land anything that made me go like, oh, what a shot from Ian Garry. They're just like picking away at range, circling around, dancing around the octagon. And I'm not trying to credit Jeff Neal or anything. I picked Jeff Neal to win that fight. I was wrong. Because Jeff Neal's an idiot, man. Jeff Neal was kind of just trying to like trot forward and like trying to get in the pocket, trying to get in range to land some big bombs. But that's not going to work, right? Like you got to have some sort of technique. You got to rush in. And when he was rushing in, he was landing. But then he resorted to just like clinching and just doing nothing. Right? Jeff Neal's a bit of an idiot, man. His style worked perfectly against Jeff Neal, right? Last time around, because Jeff Neal is in the pocket type of fighter, right? He does not like work well at range. You understand what I mean? He does not work well with fighters who fight at range. He does not match up well with them, right? So maybe I should have seen that, and I picked Garry to win, but I will never pick Garry to win because I hate Ian Garry. I'm never going to pick him to win. Anyways, MVP does not fight in a similar style to Jeff Neal at all. He leans back, karate style, and then darts in and out, lands shots, trips you when you're rocked, right? We saw him humiliate Kevin Holland with that style. I don't think Ian Garry's going to be a problem for him. I really don't think he's going to be a problem with him, right? MVP knows how to get in range. He knows how to lean back, make it look like he's farther than he is, and then dart in, land a shot. You don't know what hit you. And that's why like he was tripping Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland was all over the place because MVP doesn't look like, he's able to hit you, right? He looks like he's leaning back and you're thinking, okay, when he jumps in, I'm going to see it coming. And I think Ian Garry might think that. He might think, okay, when MVP darts in, I'm going to see it coming. I'm just going to, like boom, counterpunch, right? But then you realize, oh shit, he's a lot closer than he actually is. And then he's going to clip you and you're going to get hurt. And then while you're hurt, you can do those trip things or whatever he wants to do, right? Whatever humiliating thing he wants to do to you, he can do it because you're not there. You just got clipped by something. You're like, what the hell did I get hit with? This guy was all the way back there and now he's coming and just clipping me. How did that happen? So I think his style is going to work very well if he wants to beat Ian Garry. Much better matchup to beat Ian Garry compared to Jeff Neal. Jeff Neal, Mr. Just sit back and wait for the perfect moment to land just a bomb and boom, it's over. Like that's what he's waiting for. Let's be real here. He was waiting for Ian Garry to maybe get overconfident and then he would just boom, land a overhand or land a hook and slump Ian Garry. I think that was his game plan, just to sit there and wait for Ian Garry to mess up. Ian Garry did not mess up. He stuck to the game plan and just picked away at range. But here, he's going against another fighter who fights at range in MVP. And I think MVP will beat him, right? Especially since MVP, like I said, he humiliated Kevin Holland, right? Kevin Holland's a powerful striker. He's a good striker, right? But there was not like a single bit of competitiveness in that fight, except when Kevin Holland took it to the ground, which is something that Ian Garry won't do. So this is gonna be like what could Ian Garry do that would possibly make this fight even competitive, right? Like, yeah, sure, Ian Garry, you have some cool knockout performances against like these bums, these cans, right? Like, who did he beat before Jeff Neal, bro? I actually don't remember. I think it might have been D-Rod. Was it D-Rod? Like, he just beats these guys who are like, oh, you beat him, okay, or big surprise, bro. Like, wow, you're the real deal. Like, I'm not gonna lie, there was a certain point where everyone said, yeah, Ian Garry's the real deal because he had these very good performances against these cans, right? And when you beat a can in amazing fashion, obviously it propels you into those talks of like, okay, this guy's an up-and-comer, right? Because if you were like a bum or a can like them, you guys would have a close fight and maybe you'd edge out a win. But no, you humiliate the cans and you smoke them and you make them look like easy work, and then people think, okay, this guy's, the next up. This guy, he has a future in this company, he has a future in this division. But then against Jeff Neal, you put on that shitty performance. And also he got dropped by, what was that, like Chinese guy or whatever? Like I don't even remember his name. He got dropped by some like random bum. This like Chinese guy. I don't even know who he was. He dropped Ian Garry. Ian Garry got overly confident and got dropped. So Ian Garry's chin is not made of granite. You're getting dropped by these random bums who nobody's ever heard of. And you don't want to get dropped against MVP, who had Kevin Holland all over the place. MVP might not drop him in like, statistical knockdown fashion. Like it might not be ruled a knockdown, but he'll rock him and then boom, just while he's on wobbly legs, just kick his legs out, put him down, sweep him, trip him. Like you're getting dropped by bums. You're not going to fare well against MVP. So, another thing is the winner of this fight is right in title contention. He's right in talks for a title shot. Maybe one win away, maximum. Because these guys are ranked, I think MVP is ranked 7. Sorry, no, MVP is ranked like lower. He's not even in the top 10. But Ian Garry is ranked number 7. A win against if Ian Garry kind of is not a star, but he has a big name, and if he gets another win against another big name in MVP, he will be in talks for a title shot. He'll be at most 1 win away. At most 1 win away. And maybe I'll talk about who they would be if they were 1 win away, who they would fight to get that title shot. But we'll talk about that at the end when I'm talking about the welterweight title picture. But yes, MVP is like way lower in the rankings, but he already has a big name from Bellator, right? He already has a big name from previous organizations. He doesn't need to build a name for himself. He doesn't need to build a UFC record per se. He can do a Michael Chandler. And this is what MVP said he wants to do from the beginning, right? Michael Chandler came in, Mr. Bellator, he beat Dan Hooker in dominant fashion, and then he got a title shot right away. MVP could beat Ian Garry in very good fashion, right? Like, not first round knockout like Michael Chandler did, because I don't think MVP, MVP's not the type of guy to knock you down and rush in, right? Like he said that himself. He doesn't do that, right? He kind of just has fun in there. But MVP could beat Ian Garry and humiliate Ian Garry and then be right in talks for a title shot. And I think that's very possible. Or at most 1 win away. But now to talk about the welterweight title picture in the next coming year or 2 years, I think the welterweight division is looking to be the most exciting division in the UFC, right? I think it's starting to get there. Right now, when I think about a division I'm most excited in, I think it's welterweight. To be honest with you, I think it's welterweight. The typical answers, if you ask people what's the most stacked division in the UFC, they'll say bantamweight or lightweight. With lightweight, right, we have like Makhachev as champion. Poirier's fighting for the title. Holloway's in the mix, but now he's moving back down, and Oliveira's kind of out of the mix now, and he might even be moving up to welterweight. So some of the previous stars from lightweight, or the previous exciting fighters from lightweight, are looking to move up to 170, right? And with bantamweight, we have Sean O'Malley against Merab. And then after Merab, there's the winner of Sandhagen. I mean, okay, bantamweight is still a pretty stacked division. I'm not going to discredit other divisions. I'm not here to say that other divisions are boring. Let me actually make that clear, right? It's not a good way to prove my point. I don't want to come and say that lightweight's boring. I don't want to come and say that bantamweight's boring. Those are all very stacked divisions, but I think welterweight, in terms of title contention, there's a lot of fighters who are like 1 win away from being in line for a title shot. And these are fighters who are up-and-comers. A lot of them are up-and-comers in the UFC, right? Like, let's go through them, right? We have Jack Della Maddalena right here. Jack Della Maddalena, Shavkat Rakhmonov, Belal Muhammad. I know people don't like him too much, but he's having the title shot, and he's never fought for the title before, right? So it's not like we see in lightweight where it's, okay, Poirier is back for his 3rd title shot, right? Or like we used to have at 170, whereas Colby Covington is back for his 3rd title shot, and then he lost it, right? But the reason welterweight was so boring, kind of, I don't want to say so boring, but the reason it was kind of boring for a while is because, sorry, let me just scroll up. It was because we had Colby Covington jumping in after being inactive for over a year and having his last win against, like bum-ass Jorge Masvidal, journeyman Jorge Masvidal. His last win was against George Masvidal, and he was out for like a year and a half, and he came in, boom, and got a title shot over some deserving contenders in Belal Muhammad, Shavkat Rakhmonov, who were at the top of the line. And he jumped in line, and he put the division on hold. The division was on hold during that time because Colby Covington cut the line, and he kind of suffocated the division for a bit, right? Because think about it, right? Usman, first of all, the Usman era was amazing, right? Dominant champion. But Edwards came in, knocked out Usman. Now this is a division shift. Once you have a new champion, the division should start getting more exciting, right? Because there's new fights that could be made, right? If Usman's already beat many people who are in the top 5, top 10, whatever, then now you have a new champion who hasn't. And you can have these new fights, right? Not only that, but now we have these up-and-comers that I've been mentioning, right? Khamzat used to be at this division, but, he couldn't make the weight anymore, right? But we have these up-and-comers still. Without Khamzat, we still have these up-and-comers, these guys who have never fought for a belt before. Belal Muhammad, Shavkat Rakhmonov, now Jack Della Maddalena. Now MVP, who's never fought for a UFC belt. Now Ian Garry. This division is very, very stacked. We don't need Colby Covington anymore. We really don't. We don't need Colby Covington. He can go retire and box George Masvidal. But on a serious note, though, like to talk about matchups that could be made, I think Colby Covington, let's talk about Colby first because I just mentioned him. I think Colby Covington could fight Burns or Wonderboy. Like looking at this top 15, I see Colby at 4, and I see Burns at 6. They're very closely ranked, and Burns was calling him out at one point. So I think that's a good fight to make, right? Or you could make Colby Covington versus Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, because Colby actually did call for that fight after he lost to Leon Edwards. So I think that's a fight that you could make. I think that's a good fight. I think Wonderboy can win that too. Because when I'm thinking of matchups, I don't want to give him an easy matchup that he can win and call for a title shot again. 4th title shot? No. Let's give him Wonderboy, who showed to have good takedown defense against Rakhmonov with a broken foot, sure. But still, I mean, it was still Rakhmonov, right? But he had a broken foot. Like, I'm not trying to discredit Rakhmonov or hype up Wonderboy's takedown defense, but Wonderboy does have solid takedown defense, right? And he has very good striking, right? We've seen Colby rely on his striking a little bit before shooting for a takedown. Against Leon Edwards, he was just standing a bit before shooting. He wasn't putting too much pressure for whatever reason. If he tries that again, or tries that same style with Wonderboy, Wonderboy will take him out. Wonderboy will put him out cold. Wonderboy will beat him if he tries that same style again. Moving on from Wonderboy, Burns, if he fights Burns has very good jiu-jitsu and is a powerful striker. Like, I think both of these fighters, Wonderboy or Burns, would beat Colby Covington, right? And both of these matchups would propel either Burns or Wonderboy back in title contention. I don't think they would get a title shot off of that win. They'd probably be one win away because, again, we have all these matchups where the guys in title contention, they can't all just be in line for a title shot, right? Like, they have to start. There's going to be some time where, like, they're not fighting for a title because someone else is fighting for the title. They're going to have to fight somebody. You got to stay active, right? So I don't think all these guys are going to beat their opponent and then, boom, just get a shot right after. But they will be in talks for a title. So Burns, if he beats Covington, will be in talks for a title. He'll be in the top 5, right? Wonderboy will be in talks for a title. And I think if they make any matchup, it will be Wonderboy versus Colby Covington, because Colby called for that. And also Joaquin Buckley called out Gilbert Burns. So Joaquin Buckley is another up-and-comer in 170 who called out Gilbert Burns, and I think that's a very good fight. I think they'll make that fight, and they'll make Colby versus Wonderboy. I think those are very good matchups, right? And again, the winner is propelled into talks of, okay, one more fight and I get a title shot. Kind of stuff like that. Also in the title picture, and these fighters that I'm about to mention are actually one win away from a title shot right now. And that's Jack Della Maddalena and Shavkat Rakhmonov. Shavkat Rakhmonov, ranked number 3, was offered a title shot, actually. Offered a title shot at UFC 300, but because of Ramadan, he couldn't do it. Jack Della Maddalena, ranked number 5, called out Shavkat Rakhmonov, and I think this is a very, very, very good fight. That's been confirmed by Ian Garry, by the way. This matchup, Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Jack Della Maddalena. That's why I want to mention this specifically. Ian Garry said on his Instagram that there's nobody above me who agreed to fight. I want to fight above the rankings, but, we're going to fight down the rankings, right? Because nobody's above me. Nobody above me is going to fight. That's what he said, right? He just want to just stay idle, sitting around, waiting for someone to accept. So he's going to fight anybody. He'll fight down. He fights MVP, right? Someone commented, what about Shavkat Rakhmonov? He said Shavkat has a fight. I think him versus JDM is booked for the Perth card. They just haven't announced it yet. And I don't know why they haven't announced it, to be honest with you. The UFC does this a lot. Like, even Dricus du Plessis and Adesanya, I think have both, agreed to fight each other in Perth, UFC 305. But they just haven't announced the fight, which is interesting. I feel like UFC has a lot of these fights that they know are basically ready, but they just don't announce them for whatever reason. Announce them, come on, get us excited over something. But the thing is, they did announce some good fights for 303 and 304. I guess they don't want to bombard us with announcements for the future and then distract us from these upcoming cards, right? So I think it is, and it should be, but I think it probably is on the Perth card, UFC 305, I already mentioned. But I think it's also deserving to be a 5-round co-main event because it's a title elimination bout, right? The winner of this is 100% getting a title shot next. And after our Monster versus Charles Oliveira, we've come to realize that title elimination bouts should be 5 rounds. It should not be 3 rounds, right? Especially when if it's a title elimination bout, it's against competitive, or 2 fighters who are, very high level. It's going to be a competitive fight is what I'm trying to say. You have a title elimination bout between 2 very good fighters, both of which have an argument to deserve a title shot, which is why you make a title elimination bout, and you want to make it 3 rounds? Right? This is a competitive fight. It's going to be a competitive fight. If they make it 3 rounds, then it might be a close 29-28 for either of them. And fans of either fighter are going to be saying, okay, they should have made it a 5-rounder. The fans of the fighter who loses will be like, they should have made it a 5-rounder. And I think they should make it a 5-rounder. 5-round co-main event. We have a lot of these 5-round co-main events, like Strickland versus Costa. Like we can do this, right? Poirier versus Benoit Saint Denis was 5 rounds. I think this fight should be 5 rounds, and I think both fighters probably will be in favor of 5 rounds. I don't know. Maybe if they have a bad gas tank, they won't want 5 rounds. But I think this should be a 5-round fight, just like Umar versus Corey is a 5-round fight in Abu Dhabi, August 3rd. That's a title eliminator, right? So it's 5 rounds, main event. I think title elimination bouts should, when they can, they should be 5 rounds, right? And the UFC, if someone doesn't want 5 rounds, I think the UFC should push them to do 5 rounds because it's title elimination, bro, right? If you want to fight for a title next, bro, and you don't want to fight for 25 minutes now, you don't deserve a title shot if you don't want to have a full 5-rounder right now. How are you going to ask for a title shot if you can't do 5 rounds right now for a title elimination bout? Anyways, speaking of Charles, right, because I just mentioned Arman versus Charles, which, by the way, I think Arman won that fight, and I picked him to win, but I'm just saying that it was competitive, right? So I think we should have won 5 rounds. But speaking of Charles, we might see him move up to welterweight. He mentioned it. He said, he mentioned being the backup for Conor McGregor, and I think he mentioned also fighting Colby Covington, or maybe Colby Covington mentioned he wanted to fight him. I don't remember who called out who, but I think him against Covington would also be a very good matchup, and that would put Charles into title contention at 170. And another lightweight who's already moved up for his next fight is Conor McGregor himself against Michael Chandler, and if he wins, he's right in line for a title shot at lightweight or welterweight. Conor is always 1 win away from a title shot, right? Not Chandler, but Conor. Conor's always 1 win away from a title shot because he's a big star. He's a big money fight, and no champion will say, no, I don't want to fight Conor. They all want that money. They all want that payday. Whether it's at 170, whether it's at 155, whether it's the BMF belt with Max Holloway, no champion will say no. Back to JDM versus Shavkat for a second. I think JDM can get it done. I don't think Shavkat will rely too much on his grappling. But I'll talk about that more if I make a UFC 305 card builder video. I've already talked a lot in this video. I want to kind of just get through matchups that will happen, that will have people in title contention. So, just to sum it up, the title picture now looks like at 170. We have the winner of MVP Garry in title talks. We have the winner of JDM versus Shavkat in title talks. We have Conor and Charles being thrown into the mix, potentially. We have the winner of maybe Burns or Buckley being thrown into the mix. We have the winner of Covington Wonderboy being thrown into the mix. We have all these fighters who are coming up. Not all of them are coming up, but we have all these fighters who are possibly in talks to get a shot. I don't think you can think of another division with this many fighters who are in talks for a shot. Besides bantamweight, you could justify bantamweight a bit because bantamweight does have a lot of fighters. But with lightweight, not many fighters are technically in talks, for a shot, I would say. And speaking of lightweight, Islam Makhachev is going to move up soon. I think he's definitely going to beat Poirier, and I think he'll beat Arman Tsarukyan. And whoever else they put in front of him at lightweight before that, I think he'll beat them. I think he's very good, and he's been saying it, he wants to move up to 170. So we have all these exciting fighters from lightweight, which it still is a very exciting division, but a lot of the fighters are considering a move up to 170. And if Dustin Poirier loses, he's going to retire. I was going to say, what if he moves up to 170? I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's just going to retire, call it a day. But if he did want to stick around and he lost his 3rd title shot, he'd probably move up to 170, right? But he won't do that. Anyways, that's all for today. Stay tuned because I will make a card builder video for UFC 305 where I'm going to talk about why I think JDM can beat Shavkat, because that's a big one. A lot of people are like, I've told people that I know, I think JDM can beat him, and they're like, no, you're crazy. I think people are treating Shavkat Rakhmonov like he's the Terminator, right? He's not the Terminator. I think JDM can get it done, but I'll break it down in more detail when I make a UFC 305 card builder video. Stay tuned for that one. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.